Michelle again. This week is assignment number 2. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to work on this fidget spinner here. And I've created one already, but I want to guide you through the steps of how to make one. By the time that we're finished, it should look somewhat like this. So let's get started. First, you want to click the link that will take you to Tinkercad. And we're going to select Create a New Design. So once we've done that, we will be on our work plane here. What you want to do is first grab a cylinder shape. We don't need the clear one. We can actually take a actual cylinder so we can actually see what we're doing with it. You do need to change the dimensions on it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to 22.65 at the bottom. Push enter. And I'm going to have to change the width. Give me a second. It always bothers me. 22.65. And it's okay with the height for right now. We can change that later if we need to, but it's really just for the hole. So with the fidget spinner, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this green shape here. You can select a different shape if you want. This is just to guide you through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of turn it on its side in a second. I'm going to rotate it for myself here. And I'm going to kind of flip it this way because I kind of want it to be triangular. And I'm going to extend it a little bit to about, I'm trying to think, 48 maybe. Let's try that. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. 48 should be around here. So once I have 48 there, I think I'm going to change the other one to 53. Let's try that. Yeah, that should give me a good width. So now that I have that, I want to bring this down to, let's see, maybe like a 7 millimeter in height. So I'm going to have to take it from a different angle here to get that. It's only giving me the length and the width right now. It's a little harder because I'm actually on an actual laptop. Okay, so 53. Let's see if I can get to it. Doesn't want me to change it, does it? Oh, I think I just saw it. Oh, there it is. So it's right in the center there. I was looking for it. We really just want it to be 7 millimeters, so it's going to look kind of tiny here. And that's fine that the other object is that tall for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both these objects here. I'm going to highlight them, click and drag. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the Align tool up top. And you'll see these dots here. We want to kind of align it and center it to each other. So you're going to have to click those black dots there. And what we'll eventually do with that is we'll try to line it up right in the center there if we can. It's not going to let me. Align. Try to put it somewhere around there. So you'll see the object is kind of going through here. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to bring it down the best we can once we click just that object. You can move it around if you'd like. I'm going to kind of keep it up top a little bit for the ball bearing. So I'm going to kind of see how that looks. It looks all right to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to click that cylinder object and we're going to click hole. Once you do that, we'll have a clean, even hole going right through our design. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to group those two together. So let's see if I can group them. Try that again. Group. Once you do that, once you group them together, you'll see that there's a hole right through your design. Now this doesn't look much like a fidget spinner right now, but what I want you to do is click and drag that shape, click Control C on your keyboard, and then Control V right afterwards, and you're going to get a similar shape. What I'm going to do with these two is I'm going to actually flip this one all the way around until it's 180 degrees. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to make sure that they match up with one another. So I'm going to kind of line them up the best I can. So a good idea maybe to do is highlight both, click the Align tool so that they're lined up with each other. See? And what you'll do there is you want to move the objects closer into one another. So I'm just going to use my mouse because it will be more precise. And I kind of want them to overlap with one another a little bit. So I'm going to do a little diamond shape in there. And what I'm going to do is to make them one piece, I'm going to click, highlight them, and I'm going to select Group. When I group them, they'll become one shape, and you'll see that there is no more space in between there. It's just one whole shape there. A little uneven, but I'm fine with it. So what I'll also do is I'm going to click the whole shape now. I'm going to click Control C and Control V again. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to, wrong rotate, undo. I'm going to rotate it this way until we reach about 90 degrees exact. And what I will do is I'm going to try to align the two up the best I can here. Maybe I'll use the Align tool so that way it will help me. Let's click Align. I'm going to try to center it out the best I can. You can see I was a little off, it moved it. So there's my Align tool, and you can see that they're lined up just right. So now I'm going to click Highlight them again, and I'm going to group them again so it's all one central object. And you can see it almost looks like a clover. You can see 4-leaf clover. So I'm going to click that object, and I can move it all by itself now. So I don't forget that there is a piece in the fidget spinner. It's a little plastic piece. And that piece isn't really connected to this. This would be like a separate piece because it stays still when you spin it in your hand. So that piece would need to be inserted after and be almost one whole piece, or a piece that's glued together or connected to one another so it stays sturdy but allows the rest to spin. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a fifth hole opening in the center here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to again bring the cylinder shape, and I'm going to try to align them up the best I can here. So hopefully that fits. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to change the size again because the bearings are a certain size. It is 22.65 again. I take notes on paper on the side, so you'll see me looking over occasionally for the numbers. And again, 22.65, enter. Those are the dimensions for the bearings. Let's see if it's going to fit though, because it looks like it's overlapping a little bit, which is not good. And where'd it go? It's at the bottom, isn't it? Let's bring it over. That's why it's all the way down there. So if I want to bring it up, just Control and the up arrow to bring it up a bit. Now my thought here is, because this is a specific dimension, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a ball bearing at the top. If you look at these fidget spinners here, some don't even have a center, some do, and if they do have a center, you can see it's a little plastic piece that goes in between and it stays steady. So it doesn't necessarily have to match up with these ball bearings. It would be best if it would, but that's fine if it doesn't. So I'm going to change the dimensions so that this fits a little bit better, but I'm going to have to make sure that they, if I were to do this, I would have to have a custom piece made to these dimensions then, separately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the dimensions on the orange piece for right now. So I'm going to make this 7 for now. I'm going to bring that up, obviously. Up. There it is. All right, so now we can see clearly with what we're working with. You can see it's overlapping into the ball bearings a tiny bit, just on either side. So it looks like the both have to change a little bit from 22.65. Let's try 22 to make it even. I have to try the other side of it as well. And that didn't seem to work. So again, we're going to play around with it. Let's try 20 instead. Should make it a little bit smaller, but it'll have to be a custom build. I think I had it, and it went away on me. 22 by 22, hopefully. No, 20 we want. Playing around with finding it. 20. Alright, so that should work a little bit better now, and it's a little bit even to work with now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to try to align these two up again, because I do want them to be even. There we go. And you can see that it fits pretty well, so I'm going to change this to whole now. I'm going to highlight both, and I'm going to group them together, and you should have another whole. Now, it is a little tricky here because it's a little, it's not the way I would love it because it's very thin here, and my only problem with that is the bearings will hold, and the plastic piece will be fitting in here. However, my fear would be that thin design, especially right here and right here, is that the plastic would be easier to break there. So something to keep in mind when you make your design is you might want to make sure that the dimensions work so you can fit a bearing in the center there, since they're standard size. This, however, would not be standard size. I would have to make it a 20 diameter, 20 millimeter diameter instead of a 22.65. So just be careful, play around with it a little bit. You can have a little bit of a shape to it. If you want to try to cut off some of the edges from hitting your fingers, because I believe that these edges would be a little bit rough if it were to hit your finger accidentally while spinning. You could do something like adding a shape on the side, like a tube or a ring, and then just make it a hole instead, make it transparent. So if I were to drop the ring here, if I were to make it, you know, around this shape here to kind of cut off these corners, I could have it cut off the corners for me so that it would not be sharp when it comes around and hits your finger. So I'm going to play around with the dimensions again, if I can zoom out. And let's see if I can get the dimensions on here. This says 113. I'm going to try 110 for right now. That's the bottom. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the top. 110. I'll try to make it 110 here as well. And I have to go back to the top to see what we have. So if I just want to maybe align them up to see if I can cut those corners off, I'm going to try to align. The align tool is your friend. Because I think my objects are straight, and sometimes they aren't. So you can see it's just touching the corners a little bit. If I want them to touch the corners a little bit more so that they have more of the corners cut off, I can change, again, the measurements on the side. If I want it like 105 maybe that would really cut them off. It looks a little short there. Maybe 108. I'm just looking at the corner there. Now what I do. So let's try 108 instead. I think that will be just enough. Instead of 105. Okay, so once you do that, you can see it's not even, so you want to align them again. Make sure you press on those dots, those black dots, to line them up exactly. So that looks a lot better. All the corners look like they're in the circle. So what I'm going to do with that shape then is I'm going to make sure I make it a hole. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to group them together. And what we should have, if we did it right, which I don't see it working right now. Oh, you know why? Because if I look on the side, you can see this object is below the whole shape. So what I need to do before I group that, let me make it a solid real quick. Before I need to group that, I need to control and bring it up to make sure it's actually touching the rest of the shape. Because if it's not going to help us very much, is it? And that's okay, because you learn as you go. As you're messing around with your object, you might find things that you might want to change or don't look right. And that's fine. Take the time to be meticulous about it, because if you don't, you might find that your design is a little messed up at the end. So I'm going to click that object hole. I'm going to highlight them all again. I'm going to group them. And I cut the corners a little bit, not as much as I'd like. So my suggestion is maybe instead of taking those ring, I think I used the ring, it didn't really do the shape that I wanted it to. So I might instead use maybe a tube that's a little thicker. But you can see the little jut out in here. It cut, oh, too far. If you look at the little jut out, it made a little bit of a hole on the side of my shape, but I wanted to really cut those corners out. But again, just play around with it. Again, if I use that tube that's a little thicker, actually maybe I should have changed the thickness on that. Let me see, before I go off, I have an idea for this ring. If there's a way to change the thickness on it, why don't we do that? I feel like there might. And maybe there isn't. So again, I would maybe use the tube instead, because the tube is very thick and you can obviously change the thickness of it. If I use the tube instead, I did, what was it, 108 by 108? See if I can do that real quick. There's 108 on that side. 108 by 108. If I were to do something like that, then we would definitely, with like the other object, we would definitely probably cut off those corners. So again, I'm going to align them real quick. See, sometimes you come up with better ideas on the go. So I'm going to line them up. I'm going to make that shape now. Oh, that was the other one. I'm still aligned. We're grouping them. I'm going to take that one shape here. I'm going to make that a hole. And I'm going to then select all of them and group them together and see if that worked. Okay, so it did cut it off. Actually a pretty cool design. If you look at the bottom's cut off, and the top kind of has this extra. They almost look like pizza slices now. So that's actually kind of cool. I actually like that. If I didn't want that though, I would have to make it a little bit thicker. So let me try that real quick. If I wanted that thicker, for the sides to be taller, that's not what I want. Alright, let's see what that does. Actually, control up would have done that. So I'm going to, again, scroll out. So I just did control up to make sure it reached the top of the object. Again, I'm going to select, highlight, and I'm going to group them together. And you can see the fidget spinner is not only smaller, but the corners won't really hit your hands. They're a little bit smoother, and if you look at other fidget spinners out there, they're smooth for a pretty good reason, because if they're jagged anywhere, they're going to hit your finger, possibly cut your finger, depending on what they're made out of. So this design looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom in real quick. The centerpiece would go in. The ball bearings would fit into those holes. That's the size that you need them for. That's the same size that you would get on the fidget spinner, is 22.5 millimeters. And everything else looks pretty good. So play around with it a little bit. Try to even it out. You don't have to use the shapes I use. You can use the scribbles. You can use anything that you'd like. You can add text to your design if you'd like. Feel free to add text. Rotate it if you'd like. And try to put them on the side. You can design yours a specific way. You can make yours a certain theme, whether you want to do some kind of maybe Fortnite theme on it, who knows. So go crazy, have fun with it a little bit, be creative, see what you can turn in. Don't forget that you can change the colors on these as well. So I can make it red if I want to. If I have a different kind of theme, I can make it multicolored and pick, I think I can pick multicolored here. Maybe not. So play around with it, have fun, see what you come up with, try to be creative. Sometimes I give extra points out if you're a little bit more creative than I am on this. So a lot of you did a lot of creative things with the name tag as well. You've created oval designs, you've created different shapes for your name tag. Some had different ways to lay their font. Actually, some of you actually engraved your font on the last one. Maybe you can do something with this on the fidget spinner. So try, play around, have fun. Can't wait to see what you come up with. It's going to be good.